The crash that changed everything. James Carter was having a normal night. He had just finished watching an old sci-fi movie, laughing at how ridiculous aliens looked in those films. With a tired sigh, he turned off the lights and fell into bed. Outside, the night was quiet, and the stars twinkled in the sky. Then, boom! A massive crash shook the entire house. The walls trembled, the windows rattled, and dust fell from the ceiling. James jerked awake, his heart racing. It sounded like an explosion, right above him. Before he could even react, a large object crashed straight through his bedroom ceiling. The impact sent splinters of wood and broken plaster flying everywhere. A huge hole was now in his roof, revealing the night sky. His bed shook violently, and James rolled off onto the floor, coughing from the dust. For a second, everything was silent, except for the ringing in his ears. Then he saw it, a figure, lying in the wreckage. James blinked, trying to focus. The dim moonlight shone through the hole, casting a silver glow on the intruder. His breath caught in his throat. It wasn't a meteor. It wasn't a drone. It wasn't even human. It was a woman, but not just any woman. She was tall, strong, and dressed in what looked like black and silver battle armor. Her glowing blue eyes snapped open, scanning the room like a machine. Her silver hair shimmered under the moonlight, and strange markings glowed faintly on her arms. James stumbled backward, knocking over his lamp. He tried to make sense of what he was seeing. His brain refused to believe it. An alien woman had just crashed through his roof. Then, to make things even weirder, she stood up. Not weak, not hurt. She just rose like a warrior, her movements smooth and powerful. Her glowing eyes locked onto James. She stared at him. James opened his mouth to say something, maybe to scream, but she spoke first. Her voice was calm, but commanding. "I am Zara of the Zorian Empire," she said. Her accent was sharp, her words clear. She pointed a metallic gauntlet at James, her blue eyes glowing even brighter. Then she declared, "By ancient law, I claim you as my bonded mate." James froze. His mind broke for a second. What? What did she just say? His brain tried to process her words, but nothing made sense. She had crashed through his roof, and now she was talking about marriage. James lifted a shaking hand and pointed at himself. "Me?" he croaked. Zara gave a single nod. "Yes, you are mine now." James stared at her in horror. This is a joke, right?" His voice cracked. "Some kind of weird prank. A dream. A crazy nightmare." Zara tilted her head, studying him. Then she raised her wrist, and a holographic screen appeared in front of her. Strange alien symbols flashed across the screen. She tapped a few buttons. James didn't understand any of it. But then, the screen changed, and suddenly he saw a video. It was of him. It showed James earlier that night, sitting on his couch, watching TV. Then the footage zoomed outside, where a bright flaming object was falling from the sky. It was Zara's escape pod. And then, something crazy happened. As the pod fell, it should have crashed far away. But the footage showed something impossible. A glowing energy wave pulsed from James's house right before impact, pulling the pod directly toward him. James' jaw dropped. That's not possible. Zara turned off the screen. "The bond has already formed," she said. "It cannot be undone." James shook his head violently. "What bond? What are you even talking about?" Zara took a step closer, her glowing eyes looking deep into his. Her presence was overwhelming. "You saved me," she said. "In my culture, that means we are now bonded for life. You are my mate." James' brain exploded with confusion. He had never been married before, not even to a human woman. And now an alien warrior was calling him her galactic husband. Before he could say another word, a loud alarm echoed in the distance. Zara spun around and pulled out a sleek silver weapon from her belt. Her glowing blue eyes narrowed as she looked up through the hole in the roof. James followed her gaze, and his stomach dropped. Above them, in the night sky, a massive spaceship hovered. Its dark metal blocked the moonlight, and its engines hummed with deadly power. Zara turned back to James, her face serious. "They found me." James swallowed. "Who found you?" "The Vroken," she said. "And now, because of me, they found you too." James felt a chill run down his spine. Outside, the night was no longer quiet. Bright red lights flashed in the sky, and the low rumble of alien engines filled the air. James didn't know what was happening. But one thing was clear: his life would never be the same again. The galactic marriage contract. James stared at the massive spaceship above his house, his heart pounding like a drum. The red lights flashing from the ship made the night sky look like it was on fire. A deep, mechanical humming vibrated through the ground, rattling his bones. "This isn't real," James muttered under his breath. "This can't be real." But the hole in his roof. Real. The glowing-eyed alien warrior standing in his bedroom. Very real. And the massive spaceship hovering above. Terrifyingly real. Zara didn't waste a second. She grabbed James by the wrist with an iron grip, her glowing blue eyes sharp and alert. "We have to move. Now." James yanked his hand back. Wait. What the hell is going on? Who are they? What do they want?" Zara's jaw tightened. She glanced up at the sky. "Vroken hunters. They tracked my escape pod. They will kill anyone in their path." James froze. "Kill? As in, actually kill?" Zara nodded without hesitation. "Yes, and now that I have bonded with you, they will see you as a target." James took one step back, panic crawling up his throat. No, I didn't sign up for this. I was literally in bed 5 minutes ago. And now you're telling me I'm married to an alien, and some space assassins are coming to kill me." Zara gave him a sharp look. "It is not a marriage," she corrected. "It is a bond, one that cannot be undone." James threw his hands in the air. "That's the same thing." A loud beeping sound filled the air. Zara snapped her wrist up, and a holographic warning flashed in front of her. The alien symbols glowed red, blinking rapidly. Zara cursed in her native tongue. James didn't understand the words, but from her tone, he guessed they weren't very polite. "They are sending a retrieval squad," she said. "They will land in 60 seconds. James felt his stomach drop. "A retrieval squad? That sounds bad." "It is." Zara turned to him, eyes burning with urgency. "We must leave." But James dug his heels in. "No, I'm not going anywhere. This is my house, my life. I'm not just going to." A thunderous explosion shook the sky. James barely had time to react before the front of his house erupted into flames. The force threw him backward, and he hit the ground hard, his ears ringing. Smoke filled the air. His lungs burned as he coughed, rolling onto his side. Through the thick smoke, James saw shadows moving. Tall figures, not human. They had sleek black armor, glowing red visors, and razor-sharp weapons humming with deadly energy. The Vroken had arrived. One of them stepped forward, raising a cannon-like weapon and aiming it directly at James. His blood ran cold. Then, a blur of silver and blue. Zara moved like lightning. 1 second, she was standing beside him. The next, she lunged forward, spinning in midair, and sliced through the enemy's weapon with a glowing blade. The Vroken barely had time to react before Zara delivered a brutal kick to his chest, sending him flying into the burning wreckage. James scrambled backward, heart pounding. He had never seen anyone move like that, not even in movies. Zara stood tall, weapon glowing in her hand. She turned to him, her eyes fierce. "You are coming with me, James Carter. Now." James looked at the burning ruins of his home, looked at the Vroken soldiers regrouping, looked at the deadly spaceship hovering above, its weapons aiming straight at them. His entire life was over in a single moment. "Fine," he muttered, "but you owe me a new house." Zara didn't answer. She simply grabbed his wrist and activated her teleportation device. A sudden escape and a shocking revelation. In the blink of an eye, they were no longer on Earth. James landed hard on a smooth metallic floor, gasping for breath. The air smelled sterile, like a hospital. The walls were shiny and curved, with glowing blue lights running along the edges. He looked up. They were inside a spaceship, a massive one. His brain shut down for a second. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Zara, on the other hand, was already moving. She pressed a few buttons on a floating control panel, and suddenly a holographic screen appeared, showing Earth. Or rather, where Earth used to be. Because now, all he saw was the Vroken mothership hovering ominously over his planet. James felt sick. "They're still down there." Zara nodded. "They won't attack unless provoked. But they will not leave empty-handed. They still want you." James turned to her, his head spinning. "Why? I'm just some guy. I don't even know what's happening." Zara hesitated. For the first time since they met, she looked uncertain. Then, finally, she said, "Because you are bonded to me, James Carter, and the Vroken believe that means you are no longer human. Enemies from the stars." James Carter stood frozen inside the spaceship, his mind refusing to process what he had just heard. Not human. The words echoed in his head, bouncing around like bullets. He looked at Zara, whose glowing blue eyes showed no trace of humor. She was serious. Dead serious. His throat went dry. That's impossible," he stammered. "I was born on Earth. I pay taxes. I drink coffee. I watch cat videos at 2 a.m. How the hell am I not human?" Zara studied him for a long moment, then exhaled sharply, as if she were debating how much to tell him. Finally, she pressed a few buttons on the floating control panel, and a holographic DNA scan of James appeared before them. James squinted at the glowing blue symbols. "What am I looking at?" Zara's expression hardened. "Your genetic signature." James blinked. "Okay. And?" Zara turned to face him fully. "Human DNA is simple. It has its strengths, but it is limited. This," she pointed at the hologram, "is not just human." James felt a cold chill crawl up his spine. "What do you mean?" Zara hesitated again, then spoke. "Your DNA has traces of Zorian energy." James laughed nervously. "Zorian energy? That sounds like something out of a bad sci-fi movie." Zara didn't blink. "And yet, here you are, inside a spaceship, after an alien empire destroyed your home." James' stomach twisted. She wasn't wrong. Zara continued. "The moment I crashed, your presence altered the ship's gravitational field. That should not have been possible. Only a Zorian warrior's mate can do that." James rubbed his face, his brain overheating. Okay. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that my DNA is a little weird. What does that have to do with the Vroken?" Zara's eyes darkened. "The Vroken believe that anyone bonded to a Zorian warrior inherits their strength, their speed, their power." She stepped closer. "And if they can capture you, they will tear you apart, cell by cell, to steal that power for themselves." James' blood ran cold. Tear him apart. His knees felt weak. "Oh, that's just fantastic," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "So what do we do? Because, I'd really like to avoid the whole being ripped apart thing." Zara's expression was deadly serious. "We fight." James opened his mouth to protest. Then, boom. The entire ship shook violently, and alarms blared through the walls. Zara's face snapped up, her eyes narrowing. "They found us." James' heart pounded. "What yet? How?" She didn't answer. Instead, she rushed to the control panel, pressing rapid sequences of buttons. The holographic screen flickered, revealing the view outside. And James felt his soul leave his body. Outside the spaceship, a Vrokan war fleet had materialized from hyperspace. Dozens of dark, spiked ships surrounded them, their massive cannons glowing an ominous red. James' mouth went dry. Oh, crap. A deep, rumbling voice crackled through the speakers. Surrender the traitor Zara and the human. James whipped his head around. Traitor, what did you do? Zara ignored him, gripping the controls. We can't fight them all, she muttered. Not in open space. James pointed frantically at the holographic map. Okay, well, let's not stay here then. Hit the gas. Punch it. Whatever it is you do, do it. Zara's fingers flew over the controls. The ship lurched forward, dodging the first barrage of laser fire as it swerved through the enemy fleet. James was thrown backward, slamming against the wall. Ah. Warn me before you do that. The ship spun and twisted, ducking between enemy vessels as explosions bloomed in the darkness around them. The Vrokan were relentless, their ships maneuvering with deadly precision. Zara gritted her teeth. They're cutting off our escape route. James clung to the seat, his knuckles white. Great. That's just great. Do you have a plan B? Zara's eyes flashed with determination. Yes, but you won't like it. James threw his hands in the air. I already don't like any of this. Just do it. Zara took a deep breath, then slammed a red button on the console. Suddenly, everything went dark. For a second, James thought the ship had been destroyed. Then he realized they were still moving. But there was no sound. No alarms. No lasers. What just happened? James whispered. Zara exhaled. I activated a phantom jump. It bends space around us, masking our energy signature. The Vrokan won't be able to track us for a short time. James blinked rapidly, trying to process that. You mean we just turned invisible? Like space invisible? Zara nodded. Something like that. James let out a long breath, trying to slow his racing heart. Okay, great. So, where are we going now? Zara turned to him, her face deadly serious. To the Zorian Empire. James froze. Why do I feel like I don't like this? Zara's expression didn't change. Because, James Carter, she said, you are now at the center of an intergalactic war. Escape into the stars. James Carter had officially lost control of his life. One moment, he was a normal guy trying to sleep in his quiet house. The next, an alien warrior woman crashed through his roof, declared him her galactic mate. And now, he was on the run from an entire war fleet. His stomach twisted as the ship rocketed through space, slipping away from the Vrokan warships thanks to Zara's phantom jump. The only problem. He had no idea where they were going. James turned to Zara, gripping the edge of a metal console. Okay, so we escaped. He gulped. Temporarily. Now what? Zara's glowing blue eyes didn't leave the holographic map in front of her. We head for the Zorian Empire, she said, her tone clipped, focused. James made a face. And you're sure that's a good idea? Because the Vrokan seem really interested in murdering us. Zara's jaw tightened. They are. James threw his hands up. Great. That's so comforting. I love knowing that an entire alien army is hunting me for reasons I don't even understand. Zara didn't react. She was already busy adjusting course, fingers flying over the control panel. The ship hummed as it changed direction, the stars outside blurring into streaks of silver and blue. James slumped into a chair, rubbing his face. I need a drink. Zara glanced at him. You require hydration. James blinked. No. I mean, yes. But also, never mind. Just, why are we going to the Zorian Empire? Zara exhaled sharply. Because it is the only place where you will be safe. James narrowed his eyes. And why do I have a feeling that's not completely true? Zara hesitated. just for a second. But James caught it. Before he could press her for answers, an alarm blared through the ship. James jumped up. "Oh, come on. What now?" Zara's fingers danced across the screen, her expression darkening. "They found us." James' stomach dropped. "How? You said we were invisible." Zara clenched her jaw. "They must have upgraded their tracking systems." James grabbed his hair. "Of course they did. Because why would anything go right for me today?" A deep, rumbling voice echoed through the ship's speakers. "Zara of the Zorian Empire. Human male. You cannot run forever." James froze, his blood turning to ice. Who is that?" Zara's expression was stone cold. "Vraxis," she said. James swallowed. "That name sounds evil." Zara nodded. "Because it is." Boom. The ship shook violently as something struck the hull. James was nearly thrown to the floor, barely catching himself. "What was Day A2?" he yelled. Zara's hands were a blur over the controls. "A gravity anchor. They're trying to force us out of hyperspace." James blanched. "Can they do that?" Zara gritted her teeth. "They already are." Suddenly, the star-filled void outside changed. The ship lurched as they were dragged out of hyperspace, spinning wildly before stabilizing. James felt like throwing up. Outside, through the viewing screen, he saw it. A massive black warship, 10 times the size of Zara's, hovered in front of them. It looked like something pulled straight from a nightmare. Spiked armor, glowing red veins running along its surface, and giant plasma cannons aimed directly at them. James' heart pounded. "We are so dead," he whispered. Zara stood calm and still, but James could see the tension in her jaw. A communication window flickered to life. And then, James saw him. Vraxis, a hulking Vroken warlord, covered in dark bone-plated armor, stared at them with glowing crimson eyes. His horned head was tilted slightly, studying them like a predator watching its prey. "Surrender," Vraxis said, his voice like thunder, deep and cold. "Or be destroyed." James swallowed. "I vote surrender." Zara ignored him. She stepped forward, her voice sharp and commanding. "You have no claim over us, Vraxis." The warlord's lip curled in a twisted smile. "That is where you are wrong." He leaned forward. "The human belongs to me." James felt his blood freeze. "What?" he said weakly. "The actual hell." Zara's hand flew to her weapon, but Vraxis lifted a hand. "Attack, and I obliterate this ship." James watched Zara hesitate for the first time. Vraxis smiled. "Good. Now listen carefully, Zorian warrior. That human is no longer just a simple earthling. He carries Zorian energy. That makes him valuable." His eyes glowed brighter, and his voice was pure, cold steel. "And I will have him." James took a shaky breath. "Yeah, I'd like to vote no on that one." Vraxis didn't even look at him. "You do not understand, human. Your body holds something special. Something powerful." His smile widened. "And I intend to take it." James palmed his face. "Okay, can we just talk about the whole taking thing? Because it sounds very murdery." Zara stepped between them, her voice like a blade. "You will not touch him." Vraxis tilted his head, considering her. Then, slowly, he grinned. "Very well." Then he snapped his fingers. Suddenly, James felt a powerful force yanking him backward. He barely had time to scream before he was ripped away from Zara, his body glowing with red energy. "James." Zara lunged for him, but it was too late. The last thing James saw before darkness swallowed him was Vraxis' cold, victorious smile. Secrets of the Zorian Empire. Darkness swallowed James Carter. For a few terrifying seconds, he felt nothing. No air, no weight, no sense of direction. It was like being ripped out of existence. Then, Salam. James hit the ground hard, the impact knocking the wind out of him. His head spun as he struggled to sit up. blinking rapidly. His vision was blurry, but he could make out a cold, metallic room. Walls lined with dark red lights, the air thick with a strange, unnatural heat. He was somewhere new, and that was very bad. Footsteps echoed through the chamber. Heavy, slow, deliberate. James forced himself to his feet, swaying slightly. Okay, let's all just take a second and... Crack! A blinding pain exploded across his ribs as something slammed into him, sending him crashing into the floor again. James coughed, gasping for breath. A deep, rumbling voice filled the room. "You are weak." James gritted his teeth, pushing himself up onto his elbows. His vision cleared, and he saw Vraxis standing over him. Up close, the warlord was even more terrifying. He was massive, at least 7 feet tall, his armor a twisted blend of dark metal and organic bone. His red eyes glowing with cold amusement. His clawed hand still crackled with energy from the strike. James held his ribs, wincing. "Okay, first of all, screw you." Vraxis let out a low, guttural chuckle. "You are weaker than I expected," he mused. "And yet, you survived my strike." James clenched his jaw. "Yeah, well, I drink a lot of coffee." Vraxis ignored his sarcasm. He turned away, pacing toward a control panel on the far side of the room. With a single press of a button, holographic symbols flickered to life. James recognized some of them from Zara's ship, but these were different. Sharper, older. Then, a new image appeared. James froze. It was his own face. But something was wrong. His eyes were glowing blue, just like Zara's. His body was surrounded by faint golden energy, as if he was radiating light. James stared in horror. What the hell? Vraxis turned to him, his expression unreadable. "Now do you understand?" James shook his head. Nope, not even a little." Vraxis exhaled slowly, almost disappointed. "You truly do not know." James threw up his hands. "Dude, I am just some guy from Earth." Vraxis tilted his head. "No, James Carter, you are something else entirely." James swallowed, his mouth dry. "Like what?" Vraxis studied him carefully, as if deciding how much to say. Finally, he pressed another button, and the image changed, showing something ancient, something far older than Earth itself. A massive stone tablet, covered in Zorian inscriptions, depicting 2 figures standing side by side. One of them was clearly a Zorian warrior. The other was human, or at least something that looked human. Vraxis' voice was low and measured. Long ago, the Zorian Empire did not stand alone. James blinked. "What?" Vraxis continued, gesturing toward the hologram. "Thousands of years ago, before your planet had even built its first civilizations, there was another race, a race that existed between humanity and the stars." ***. James' stomach twisted. "What kind of race?" Vraxis' eyes gleamed. "Zorian hybrids." James felt his breath hitch. "What?" he whispered. Vraxis turned to face him fully. "There was a time when Zorians and humans were bonded, not by accident, not by law, but by blood. The first Zorian humans were warriors, explorers, rulers of a vast empire that stretched across the galaxy." James shook his head, his heart pounding. "That's not possible. Humanity just started space exploration. We barely got to the moon. If we had a galactic empire, we would know." Vraxis smirked. "Would you?" James opened his mouth, then stopped. Would they? Would humanity really know if there had been another species before them? If there had been hybrids between humans and something else? Vraxis pressed another button, and this time, the hologram zoomed in on the ancient figures carved into the stone tablet. The human-like figures' eyes. They glowed, just like Zara's, just like James. James staggered backward, gripping his head. No, 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 this is insane. I'm just a normal guy. I work in it. I am not some kind of lost alien hybrid. Vrax's smile widened. And yet your body carries the last remnants of the Zorian human legacy. That makes you the most valuable being in the universe. James' mind was spiraling. Vraxis took a slow, deliberate step forward. The Vroken do not wish to kill you, James Carter. James looked up, confused. You literally punched me across the room 5 minutes ago. Vraxis ignored him. We do not want to kill you. We want to harness you, to study you, to restore what was lost. His red eyes gleamed. You are the key to unlocking the greatest power the galaxy has ever seen. James took a step back. Nope. Nope. Hard pass. Not interested in being a science experiment, thanks. Vraxis chuckled. You will not have a choice. Suddenly, the alarms blared. James' head snapped up. Is that a good alarm or a bad alarm? Vraxis' expression darkened. A deep voice crackled through the speakers. This is Zera of the Zorian Empire. Release James Carter, or die. James grinned. Now that's the best thing I've heard all day. Vraxis turned to the controls, his red eyes flashing. This is not over. James smirked. Yeah, well, tell that to my wife. Vraxis snarled. Then, boom. The entire ship shook violently as something exploded outside. James grabbed onto the nearest console, barely keeping himself upright. Zera had arrived. And she wasn't alone. The final battle. The entire ship shook violently as another explosion ripped through the hull. The red emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the metallic walls. James gripped the console, struggling to keep his balance. The alarm screamed in his ears, and the acrid smell of burning metal filled the air. Outside, through the large viewing window, he saw Zera's warship barrel through the darkness, a sleek silver vessel cutting through space like a blade, dodging enemy fire as it unleashed blazing plasma rounds at the Vroken fleet. Zera had come for him, and she had brought hell with her. James grinned weakly. I knew she'd come. Vraxis, standing at the center of the command deck, growled in frustration, his red eyes burning like dying suns. The Zorian dog is persistent. He turned to his soldiers. Bring the human. We leave, now. James' stomach dropped. 2 massive Vroken warriors in black armor stomped toward him. Their metal gauntlets hissed as shock cuffs activated, bright red electricity crackling across their fingers. Oh, hell no, James muttered, backing away. But there was nowhere to run. The first Vroken lunged at him. And then, boom! The doors exploded inward, sending molten debris flying. James ducked as a flash of silver and blue shot through the smoke, moving like a storm of death. It was Zera. Her glowing blue eyes blazed like twin stars as she tore through the enemy soldiers with brutal efficiency. The first warrior raised his energy blade, but she was faster, dodging under his swing before driving her knee into his chest, cracking his armor. She spun, a flash of silver light following her movements, and slashed through his weapon with her plasma blade. The second Vroken charged her, roaring in fury. Zera didn't flinch. She sidestepped effortlessly, grabbed the warrior's wrist, and with one fluid motion, she twisted his arm and sent him crashing into the metal floor. The impact shook the entire deck. James stared, wide-eyed. Not that I'm complaining, he called, but maybe warn me next time before you blow up the door. Zera didn't even glance at him as she snapped her blade back into its hilt. Are you injured? James patted himself down. Physically? No. Mentally? I'd lost about 5 years of my life. She arched an eyebrow. Then we move. But before they could take another step, Vraxis spoke. Impressive. James and Zera froze. The warlord stood at the far end of the room, his massive form blocking their only exit. He didn't look angry. He looked amused. Zara immediately raised her blade, her body coiled like a predator ready to strike. "Stand down, Vraxis." Vraxis smirked. "Or what?" He spread his massive, clawed hands. "You may have bested my soldiers, but you are still only one warrior." His eyes flickered to James. "And he is still weak." James bristled. "Wow. Rude." Vraxis ignored him. His focus was solely on Zara. "Tell me, Zorian, do you truly think you can protect him forever?" Zara's grip tightened on her weapon. "I do not think," she said. "I know." Vraxis chuckled darkly. "Then prove it." And then he moved. Faster than James thought possible, the warlord lunged at them, his fist glowing with dark energy. Zara barely had time to react. She raised her blade, but Vraxis was stronger. His punch slammed into her sword, sending a shockwave through the room. The force threw James backward, and he crashed against a control panel. Zara stumbled but recovered quickly, rolling to the side and launching herself forward. The two warriors clashed violently, their weapons sparking as they exchanged brutal strikes. Vraxis swung his massive blade, aiming for her head. Zara ducked, flipping backward, and landed gracefully on one knee. Vraxis sneered. "You fight well." Zara's eyes burned. "I fight to win." And then she changed tactics. Instead of attacking, she dodged. She moved faster, striking at Vraxis' joints, his weak spots, forcing him to overextend. James, still half dazed from hitting the console, noticed something. Zara was analyzing him. Every movement, every swing. She was adapting. She was learning his attacks in real time. And suddenly, she struck. A perfect counter move. She sidestepped his blade, twisted behind him, and in one flawless motion, she plunged her plasma dagger straight into his side. Vraxis roared in pain. His red energy flickered as he stumbled forward, clutching his side. His massive form shuddered, but he didn't fall. He turned his head, breathing heavily. "You." He exhaled sharply. "You have grown stronger." Zara didn't reply. She just pressed a button on her wrist. James barely had time to react before a bright flash filled the room. And then, they were gone. Teleported. A desperate escape. James hit the floor of the warship's cockpit, gasping for breath. Zara landed beside him, her blade still in hand. "Buckle in," she ordered. "Now." James didn't argue. He threw himself into the co-pilot's chair, strapping himself in. Zara slammed the controls forward, and the ship blasted away from the broken warship at full speed. Alarms blared. Enemy ships pursued them. James clutched his seat. "Zara, this is great and all, but how are we escaping an entire war fleet?" Zara's expression was unreadable. "We aren't." James paled. "I'm sorry." "What?" She pressed a sequence of buttons on the control panel. A holographic screen appeared, showing a massive, swirling blue wormhole. James' eyes widened. "Oh, hell no." Zara looked at him. "Brace yourself." James screamed. And then, they plunged into the wormhole. The ship vanished into the unknown, leaving the broken fleet behind. A new beginning. The moment James and Zara's ship entered the wormhole, reality itself twisted around them. James felt weightless, his body stretching and compressing all at once. Colors blurred, light bent in ways that made no sense, and a deep hum vibrated through his bones. "Oh, this is so much worse than hyperspace." James gripped the seat, his stomach flipping inside out. "I think I'm gonna." And then, they emerged. The ship lurched forward, bursting out of the wormhole like a bullet. The starfield settled, the dizziness faded, and for a moment, there was silence. James took a shaky breath, blinking at the massive space station ahead. It was unlike anything he'd ever seen before. A floating metropolis, bathed in golden light, hanging in the void like an artificial sun. Towering spires stretched into the darkness. glowing blue energy veins running along their surfaces. Giant floating rings rotated around the station, their purpose unknown but mesmerizing. Dozens of smaller ships buzzed around it, entering and exiting massive docking ports like bees returning to their hive. James exhaled slowly. Well, that's new. Zara remained focused, piloting toward the station at full speed. Welcome to the Zorian Citadel. James let out a nervous laugh. Oh yeah, do I get a welcome drink? A mint on my pillow. Zara ignored his sarcasm, pressing buttons on the console. A holographic screen flickered to life, displaying a sleek, armored figure on the other end. A Zorian officer with piercing green eyes and a regal posture. Commander Zara, you have returned. The officer's gaze flicked to James. And I see you have brought the anomaly. James' eye twitched. The what now? Zara didn't react to the term. Open the gates. I need immediate access to the High Council. The officer hesitated, his gaze lingering on James. Then, with a nod, he pressed a button. Access granted. Docking Bay 7 is clear. The call ended. James let out a nervous laugh. Okay, I have questions. A lot of questions. Zara guided the ship toward the glowing docking bay, entering the station's protective energy field. You will get answers soon. James sighed, rubbing his temples. Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. The meeting of the High Council. The moment James stepped onto the Citadel's docking platform, all eyes were on him. Zorian warriors, scientists, and officers in elegant uniforms stared at him, some in curiosity, others in shock. James swallowed. Wow, I feel supernormal, and not at all like an alien zoo exhibit. Zara kept walking, leading him through the grand corridors of the Citadel. The halls were lined with towering statues, each depicting legendary Zorian warriors, their glowing eyes watching over the Empire. James was too overwhelmed to crack a joke. Finally, they reached an enormous chamber, a room bathed in blue light, where 7 powerful figures sat on a raised platform, each wearing intricate robes of silver and gold. The Zorian High Council. The center figure, a tall, dignified woman with silver hair and glowing violet eyes, stood up. Commander Zara, she said, her voice carrying weight. You bring before us an impossibility. Zara bowed slightly. Honored Council, this is James Carter, the human who carries the remnants of our lost lineage. James raised a finger. Yeah. Hi. That's me. Apparently, I'm an impossibility. Really loving all these nicknames. The council members whispered amongst themselves, their expressions unreadable. The woman at the center, the High Chancellor, stepped forward. James Carter, she said, her gaze locking onto his. Do you know what you are? James crossed his arms. No, but everyone else seems to. The Chancellor studied him. Then she gestured toward the holographic display behind her. A massive image appeared, one of an ancient Zorian figure standing beside a human, just like the one James had seen on Vrax's ship. This, the Chancellor said, is proof that your kind once walked among the stars. James stared. My kind. The Chancellor nodded. You are not just human, James Carter. You are the last descendant of the Zorian human hybrid line. James' head spun. Wait. What do you mean last? The Chancellor's expression darkened. The others were destroyed. The Vroken saw to that. James felt his stomach drop. So you're saying? Zara finished for him. You are the only one left. James sank into a chair. Oh, great. No pressure. A burden and a choice. The Chancellor studied James carefully. You may not have been raised among us, but the energy of our people flows through your veins. The Vroken know this. That is why they will never stop hunting you. James rubbed his face. Yeah, Vraxis made that painfully clear. Zara stepped forward. We cannot leave him defenseless. He must be trained. James perked up. Wait, what? The Chancellor nodded. If you truly wish to survive, you must embrace what you are. James let out a hysterical laugh. Okay, this morning I was a guy who just wanted to sleep. Now I'm supposed to become a space warrior. Zara placed a hand on his shoulder. James looked up at her, confused. You are not alone in this, she said, her voice softer than before. I will train you myself. James searched her face. For the first time since this nightmare started, he felt something steady, something real. A partner, a choice. Finally, he let out a slow breath. All right, he said. Let's do this. The Chancellor nodded approvingly. Then let the training begin. As James stepped forward, the doors of the chamber opened once more. Outside, the stars shimmered. A new war was coming. But James Carter, for the first time, he was ready.